Rebirth. So this how the afterlife is, but it isn't like what I've been told. I thought I was supposed to be judged and then go to either hell or heaven based on the outcome of my judgment, so why is everything so dark here? I don't see anyone with shining light come to judge my life. A man thought as he looked all around him, but all he could see was pitch black void around. He didn't know where he was, but he knew one thing, and that was he wasn't in the supposed heaven or hell. If this isn't any of them, then where is this place? The limbo. The man was startled when he heard a voice of a man in the void but couldn't trace the source of the voice as he could hear it from every direction in the void. Where is this limbo place you speak of? Is it another part of the afterlife I wasn't aware of? No, but enough with that afterlife stuff. Let's talk about why you are here. Do you want to continue to the afterlife or go through with why I brought you here? Reincarnation, your choice. The man was shocked when he heard about the second choice. Heb knew about reincarnation. Hell, everyone knew about reincarnation, but he didn't believe in it, as what he knew and was taught from a young age was that heaven and shell was the place everyone who died will be going to. Nobody told him anything about any limbo or any reincarnation stuff. Sigh, whatever you are thinking, you should stop, as not everyone have the opportunity you have, well, except from the two other people before you, and since I know you will be going to choose reincarnation, let's not waste any more time and proceed. Choose your world, your appearance and your origin before saying anything about wishes and perk. The man just floated in the void as he wondered what world he should choose from. He had many worlds he would have loved to explore, such as Naruto, One Piece, Bleach, Solo Leveling, Avatar, and TV shows like Lucifer, TVD to Legacies, Charmed, The Flash, the DCEU, the MCU, and of course, K-dramas. One of his favorites, such as Alchemy of Souls, GU Family Book, Korean Odyssey, Tale of the Nine-Tailed Fox, and many more, so he could not decide which one to spend his new life in, and he cannot merge all of them into one world, so he gave up and said, "Can you make a wheel of all the worlds and let it decide which world I will go? Either one that appears, I will take, as all it will not be a world I don't know of. If you say so, then so be it." Immediately the voice spoke. A wheel appeared before him detailing all the worlds he knows of. He tapped on the spin button and the wheel began to rotate at an extremely fast speed before slowing down gradually until it stopped on a world. Oh, I see, the world of Teen Wolf. That's not bad, I can work with that. Now that the world is selected, let's move on to your appearance and origin. For my appearance, I want to look like my current self but athletic and also more handsome than the current me. And my origin, I want to have an unknown and mysterious origin to the world like the old ones from the TVD book series and no parents whatsoever, and I want to be very old, like you can make me as old as 7,000 years and you can send me to the time before Sebastian Vallet became the Beast. Well, I can work with that. Now to your wishes. You have 5 wishes and 1 perk, so make good use of them. I want to be an original hybrid of an original vampire and an original werewolf, like the first of both species. 2. I want the knowledge of rune making from all over the omniverse if there is one. 3. I want the ability to control all the elements. 4. I want an immortal hellhound servant from the moment I go to the world, and as for my last wish, I want to have a mate bond with. In my perk, I want an infinite evolution type perk. That's okay, but you will have to know that being original hybrid, you are going to be hard to kill since you are first of both creatures, so I will create a special weapon that can kill you and only that weapon can kill you. That's good, right? Yeah, pretty much, you said it yourself. I am like a god in that world, so you creating the weapon will not mean they can be able to use it, so there is nothing to be afraid of. So what weapon are you going to make? A piece of wood from the Yggdrasil tree of life and death, as that will be the most reasonable weapon to be able to kill you, and the Nemeton wood is a branch of the Yggdrasil tree, so it might be able to put you to sleep like the daggers from the originals. So that's that, goodbye and never to see you no more. Likewise. The man replied to the voice as he disappeared from the void. Elsewhere. All 3 friends have no reincarnated into different world of their choice. I cannot wait for the adventure they will have together, and they can satisfy my boredom too. An entity radiating power that even the very space they currently resides is a means to protect the outside words from suffering any damage from they shakes just from their voice alone, but they always sustain it so as to not let a single speck of their aura pass through that space, as unimaginable things will happen in the omniverse. It's going to be a long time to be able to reunite with me again. Well, at least, they can keep their entertained till then. They created 3 screens as they watched the journey of 3 friends whom they had given a chance at reincarnation to keep their immortal life entertained. Elsewhere. In the middle of nowhere, a cut-down tree could be seen, and a naked man with white hairs and a large dog could be seen on it with the naked man unconscious. A.N. Love interest. Marie-Jean Vallée. Allison Argent. Lydia Martin. Malia Hale. Kira Yukamura. Cora Hale. Suggestions. That's it, this is just a teaser release as I won't be uploading the fanfic anytime soon as I still have a lot to do before I will have a chance to release more chapters, but you can get more chapters on my Patreon starting next year March, as by then my workload would have lessened. Support me on my Patreon. Patreon link. Patreon.com Adams World 504. Thank you, see you on when I see you. 36 comments 0 vote. Orion and Agni. A young man with white hair and golden eyes in his late 20s walked into a tavern with a black dog by his side. Wow, I have never seen a man as handsome as him before, where do you think he comes from? How should I know, all I know is that he is not a native of Gavadan. Oh, that we all know. A group of women could be seen fangirling the young white-haired man who didn't pay them any attention. This Orion, a self-given name, he just liked the name and decided to use it and he named his hellhound servant pet, Agni. It has been 5 years he came to these world but he received memories of his current life of 7,000 years ago. How he first came to the world mysteriously and met a pair of siblings who he later turned into the first vampire and werewolf. He also discovered other supernatural creatures throughout his long life. He watched how civilization rise and fall, how the siblings he first turned fought against each other due to a woman which caused the bad blood between the vampires and the werewolves. He sighed at that and left them to their own devices, since they were immortals and they cannot die by normal means as only he can kill them, and what was even more funny was that their last name was Hale. Now he is currently in Gavadan where he wanted to take care of a mistake he made and in the process, teach the first Argent hunter a tiny little bit of rune crafting to even the playing fields in the future. He walked into the tavern where he heard the people inside talking about a beast that kills people wherever it goes. They all stopped immediately. He walked inside due to his usual appearance and the fact that he brought in a dog with him. Hey, dogs aren't allowed inside the tavern, so you should take your dog outside. The owner of the tavern said as he looked at Orion. Orion, sorry about that, but you see, Agni here is a little uncomfortable with strangers, so you would have to bear with me. Orion said as he and Agni find a place to sit. After he sat down he ordered something to drink as he looked around him as the men ignored him and went back to what they were discussing about when he saw her. Marie-Jean Vallée, the ancestor to the Argent family and also possibly Allison, was her reincarnation as both of them shared the same face and was also confirmed when Sebastian looked through the memories of Scott and saw her there. She saw his gaze and walked up to him as she delivered what he ordered personally. Marie-Jean, it is not often we see foreigners here, what brought you here if I may ask? Orion, isn't rude for you to walk up to me and begin to question me without any introduction or whatsoever ever. Marie-Jean, I'm sorry, my name is Marie-Jean Vallée, care to tell me yours? Orion, and this is Agni, my best bud and companion. Orion said as he ruffled Agni's head. Orion, as of why I am here, I came to take care of something I unintentionally did which has gone on killing spree everywhere and I happened to hear of recent killings here, so I came to investigate. Orion said to her. Marie-Jean, what are you, some kind of a bounty hunter or what, and is that why you have a dog with you? Orion, oh, love, I'm far from that, but for your sake, you can just call me a hunter. Orion smiled as he took a sip of his drink when he smelled a scent of a supernatural being who he attributed to Sebastian Vallée. Sebastian, why look for an hunter when you have the best one in town, Marie-Jean Vallée, my lovely sister? Immediately Marie-Jean heard his voice, she stood up and ran to hug her brother and his friend, Marcel. Orion, what kind of a sick bastard is he? He made his sister hunt him just to try and kill her himself, and that psychopath of a friend, begging for Marie-Jean to end his life only for him to prolong it and resurrect the bastard. I wouldn't have interfered much if it wasn't from my pa he drank from, and it will be difficult to kill him using the method shown in the TV series without my blood. Orion was interrupted from his thought when he saw Marie-Jean and her brother, Sebastian and Marcel coming over to him. Sebastian, wow, you are the first foreigner who I have seen with your features, you are indeed a rare being. Sebastian said as he sat down with Orion, who looked at the psychopath in front of him who only loves to kill even before he became the beast and wondered if he was his next target. Marie-Jean, Orion, you said you were a hunter yourself, right? Orion, yeah, what is it? Marie-Jean, can I get your assistance in hunting down the animal terrorizing our town? Orion, sure, it might even lead me to my prey. I'm sure they connected and might even be the same case. Marie-Jean, great, we will leave by sunrise tomorrow, so be prepared. Orion nodded and drank the remaining drink and wanted to leave and act as if he was going to prepare himself when Sebastian stopped him and said, Sebastian, I have to warn the both of you, the monster, I have heard tale of it back in the battlefront and from what I've heard it is not your everyday animal, it might even be a supernatural creature, so tread carefully. Sebastian said as if he truly cared for their well-being while Marie-Jeanne laughed at her brother's belief for the supernatural while Orion nodded and left with Agni who looked at Sebastian as if he was going to tear him off. Later that evening, Sebastian and Marcel were in a room together. Marcel, I don't think that foreigner is an ordinary person, you should be careful Sebastian, we don't know what he can do. Sebastian, that's not a problem for me, I can rip his life anytime I want, I just can't wait for the fun to begin tomorrow. Sebastian wasn't worried about anyone as he believed he was the most superior being on the planet as nothing can stand in his way, he is the beast, la bête du Gévaudan. Marcel just sighed at his friend's arrogance but didn't say anything as he knew his life could easily be taken from him due to the slightest provocation. The next day, Orion and Agni are already waiting for Marie-Jeanne and a band of hunters. It didn't take long for Marie to show up and saw Orion laying on a tree by himself as Agni laid close to the tree also with his eyes closed. Marie-Jeanne announced her presence and the two chatted for a while before the other hunters arrived. Marie-Jeanne, everyone with me, we've got ourselves an animal to hunt. A.N. Hey everyone, I'm currently partaking in the WPC for Dec and Jan, so I would like you to support my novel, The Omnipotent System by adding it to your library and also when you are bored or just feel like reading something you can check it out and tell me what you think, thanks. 7 comments 0 vote. The hunt. Roar. A roar sounded through the forest as the hunters became vigilant. Marie-Jeanne, everyone be careful, we don't know what this animal is but what I do know is that we are going to fall it tonight, but I don't want you to lose your life in the process, I made a promise to your family to bring you back safe. Orion, I wouldn't count on that Marie-Jeanne, if care is not taken, we might even lose our lives in the process, we dealing with a never seen before animal, for all we know, your brother might even be right. Orion said so as to not let Marie-Jeanne get ahead of herself. If it was up to him, he would have just ended the life of the beast easily but he didn't want to do it, this is what Marie-Jeanne was for, she had to kill the beast, create a family of hunters with her husband that will live throughout the years to come, he is just here to help her as the beast was stronger than it was shown in the series. Marie-Jeanne, don't tell me you are seriously going to believe what my brother said about it being some kind of creature, do you? Orion, well, it wouldn't hurt not hurt n. ROOOAAAAARRRRRR. Orion paused when he heard the second roar from the beast. Ah, ah, ah. Orion and Marie-Jeanne turned to look where the scream came from when they noticed that 3 of the hunters are nowhere to be found. Ah, ah. While they were still looking for what did that, they heard another scream, so they turned to the direction, only to find out that 2 more hunters were missing. Swoosh, swoosh. They heard something running extremely fast past them. Orion, be careful, don't do anything rash. Marie-Jeanne nodded as she remained vigilant looking to see if she could get the image of the animal attacking them. Marie-Jeanne finally saw what it was which made her shaken as she has never seen something like this before. She saw a large monster that's 3 times her size, with more fur covering its body as well as large red visible veins. The face of the monster is also peculiar, being more feline than canine and with an oversized mouth with no lips and the monster almost appears as though it is made up of black smoke or shadows. Marie-Jeanne, what is that thing? Orion, run, Marie-Jeanne, I will hold off this monstrosity. Orion said as he released an arrow at the beast which exploded upon contact with the beast. Marie-Jeanne, I can't leave you here Orion, not alone with that monster. Orion, go, I can take care of myself when you are not here, you are a liability more than a help. Marie-Jeanne was hurt by what Orion said, he called her liability, this hurt her pride as a hunter. While they were not focused, the beast recovered from his temporary stunted state and lunged at Marie-Jeanne and wanted to rip her head off as he has deemed her as an easy prey since Orion could even make him daze for a small amount of time. As the beast was about to get close to her, someone came from behind Marie-Jeanne and threw some ash-like substance around them and threw a bottle to Orion who knew it to be mountain ash, a form of ash created by burning the wood from a mountain ash tree, which possesses the ability to protect against the supernatural by preventing them from coming into contact with it. Orion threw it in the air and the mountain ash surrounded him and Agni protecting them or what it seems like from the beast. The beast clashed with the invisible walls of the mountain ash and could not pass through its defenses. Frustrated with not being able to finish off its prey tonight, he left. Marie, Jean turned around to look at the man who helped her after the monster left and knew him to be Henri Argent. He is a lean man of average height who had long, dark brown hair, pale white skin, and dark eyes. Marie, Jean, thank you for saving my life. Henri, no problem, I had the means to help, so of course I would help. Orion didn't mind Henri and Marie, Jean as he was focused on how he was going to get out of the mountain ash barrier without alerting them. He could use Agni's flames but they will notice it. Orion decided to use his control over the element of air which he used to separate the barrier. After he was done with the mountain ash issue, he walked to Marie, Jean and Henri. Orion, let's get out of here. Henri, come with me, I will take you my home where I can explain what type of creature we are dealing with. With that, Henri led Marie, Jean and Orion to his home. A few minutes later, the trio were all seated when Marie, Jean began her questioning, starting with, what is that thing? Henri, a werewolf, a creature of the night, who only hunt for the thrill of ending life and causing destruction wherever it goes. Orion, and he won't stop until it has ended all lives or it is killed. Henri and Marie, Jean looked at Orion after he said that. Orion, and why are you all staring at me like some kind of ghost or something? Henri, how do you know about werewolves? Orion, you think you are the only one who know about the world of the supernatural. Orion questioned Henri back while looking at MJ, Marie, Jean. MJ, enough, the two of you, this is not the time to ask yourselves questions, instead I will be doing the questioning, but first tell me how to stop something like that. Marie, Jean stopped the two men from having a questioning section with each other and let them think about another pressing matters, like how to kill Lebet, the werewolf threatening their town. Henri, I only know how to survive a werewolf, not hunting and killing them. Orion, I can help you with that, and it is going to be easy, seeing as you are already a great hunter yourself, we will just have to change your hunting gears into something more, something that can actually defeat a werewolf, but that won't kill the beast, it will at most injure it and that's all. The beast isn't like any other werewolf, it is more of a monster that only knows one thing, and that is to kill and kill and kill, anywhere it sees life, that's why I came here, to stop the beast but I'm going to need your help, including you Henri. Orion said as he sat down while waiting for the reply of MJ and Henri. MJ, I will help you, I can't let that bastard continue its killing spree in my town. Tell me what I have to do, Orion. Henri, I don't know how to fight even a normal human being or how to hunt, probably talk less of a giant shapeshifter werewolf, but I have everything needed to defend against it, the knowledge about the supernatural, and I will also help with anything or in any way I can to make the town of Gavadan safe again. Orion smiled at that and put his hands into his pocket and brought out a book which he placed on a table in front of them. Orion, this is the Book of Covenant, it holds a large varieties of runes that can be used to strengthen the both of you to unimaginable heights, giving you a fighting chance with supernatural creatures and using it on your gears to deal more damage. With this, we can have a major chance in getting rid of the beast, so are you in? A.N. Thanks for reading. And comment, drop power stones and reviews if you are enjoying it. Thank you. 10 comments 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. Marie Jean confronts the man behind the beast. The people of Gavadan all gathered in the tavern of their town on the behest of Marie Jean to honor the death of the hunters who met their unfortunate end in the hands of the beast. MJ, to honor the dead, I expect everyone to drink. Marie Jean said as she and Orion passed the drinks to everyone, which contained wolfsbane, also known as aconite or monkshood, an extremely toxic herb for werewolves, werekoyotes, and presumably werejagars. Marie Jean is very determined to catch the killer today and get rid of it so that peace can return to the people of Gavadan. Even Sebastian and Marcel joined them and passed the drinks around, and when everyone has gotten their shares, Sebastian raised a glass as he proposed a toast. Sebastian, to the dead. Everyone, to the dead. Everyone had their drinks while Marie Jean looked around to see who would have any effect to the wolfsbane when she heard a glass falling to the ground and turned around to see Marcel bleeding. She looked at Orion, who nodded at her before she rushed over to Marcel. MJ, I have got him. Come, Marcel, out to the well. Marie Jean held Marcel and ushered him outside and brought him to the well close to the tavern. MJ, do you have any cloth? Something to wrap your hands. Marcel, yes. As Marie Jean was washing off the blood from Marcel, he pulled out a key and handed it over to her. Marcel, in the cellar. There was a brief moment of silence as Marie-Jeanne and Marcel shared a meaningful look together as they knew the other party must have known they know. Marcel, you will find what you are looking for in the cellar. Marcel said while stretching the keys towards Marie-Jeanne. Marie-Jeanne took the key from Marcel and walked backward so as not to give Marcel the chance to catch her unaware. After creating some distance from Marcel, she turned around and hastened her steps to the cellar which was not far off from the tavern. When she got to where the cellar was, she bent down and opened it and looked around her to see if anything out of the ordinary was around before going inside. She took the lamp that was hung around the corner, went deep into the cellar and saw something that terrified her greatly. She saw the dead bodies of victims killed and mutilated by the beast, all kept in the cellar as they rot there. Marie-Jeanne immediately ran out of the cellar and took her crossbow she kept around in case of something like this and immediately went to confront Marcel as she believed him to the beast. Marcel with his head down and was still bleeding from his wound heard the slow steps of Marie-Jeanne, but he did nothing and wanted for her to do what he wanted her to do, killing him. Marie-Jeanne pointed the crossbow at Marcel and hesitated for a while as she was about to raise his head to look at her. She wanted to look at him in his eyes and wanted an explanation for why he was doing that. Marcel, go ahead, release the arrow, do it, Marie-Jeanne. Go ahead, let the arrow fly. Release it, Marie-Jeanne, please. Release me. Marcel, seeing that Marie-Jeanne was still hesitating on killing him, urged her to the extent of even making her take some steps back. Marcel continued urging Marie-Jeanne, which made her to remember the bodies of the dead she saw back at his cellar, making her unconsciously releasing the arrow, but she immediately regained her senses and changed the direction of the crossbow. MJ, you are not the killer, you are covering for him. Marie-Jeanne said after she saw that his wound still hasn't healed, which is not supposed to be so from the stories she heard from Orion and Henri. Having an idea of who it might be, Marie-Jeanne left Marcel and went back to the tavern to confront the killer, her brother. Back at the tavern, Orion and Sebastian were having a staring contest because the latter saw the former saw him when he unconsciously shifted from the influence of the wolfsbane. Orion, so you are the killer, the werewolf terrorizing the town, why? Sebastian, because that's what I am the demon wolf. It will be very degrading for my nature if I don't embrace who I was truly meant to be, the beast. Orion, you are a sick bastard that was even a killer before you even became a werewolf. Yes, I've done my research and I know about you. You are just a sadistic and psychopathic monster hiding in the flesh of a human, and when you became a werewolf, you became a dog with no leash. You became uncontrollable and you did what you always loved doing, kill and kill because you now fear no one as you have the power no one else has. Sebastian was surprised as to how Orion knew all that, but he just shrugged it off as he believed he does not need to put such a low life in his eyes. Sebastian, I don't know what you are talking about. Orion, denying it, I see. Well, someone else could have bought it, but you say, I'm not someone else. You see, I have been studying about your kind for years now, which means even before you became one, I know the myths and legends about the supernatural, and let me tell you one interesting one. Orion smiled as he moved closer to Sebastian and whispered his next sentence in his ears. Orion, the shape a person takes reflect on who they are, so Sebastian, who do you think you are? Orion said before he walked off as he saw Marie-Jeanne walking towards Sebastian with anger in her eyes. Sebastian, who was still thinking about what Orion said, was caught off guard by his sister who appeared by his side. MJ, you have killed children. Sebastian, I kill whatever dares to cross my path. MJ, why? Sebastian, that's who I am, that's what I've become. You've heard of the old story of what happens when someone drinks rainwater from the paw print of a wolf, you become the demon wolf. Sebastian fully embraced his true nature and told Marie-Jeanne without any shred of humanity, even to his own sister. If she dares to stand against him, then she will leave him no choice but to kill her too, and just add it to the list of people he had and will kill. Marie-Jeanne was devastated as the man whom she called her brother was nowhere to be seen, only a monster and a demon, that's all she could see. Her brother is gone and now he is just the demon wolf. Marie-Jeanne looked at the magistrate and everyone in the tavern and contemplated on whether to tell them or not. Sebastian, go ahead, tell them it's me and watch me tear them apart in matter of moments, every last soul in this place. MJ, you are a monster. Sebastian shook his head as she called him a monster. Sebastian, beast, Marie-Jeanne, the beast. Sebastian said as he stood up and made his way out of the tavern, leaving the devastated Marie-Jeanne alone, not before he said his final piece. Sebastian, you won't catch me and you won't kill me, we are family, Marie-Jeanne, we're family. he said as he finally left the tavern under the watchful eyes of Marie-Jean. Orion watched all of this inside before he made his way to Marie-Jean together with Henri. Henri, so what now, Marie-Jean, we have found out who is the man behind the beast, what should we do now? Marie-Jean cleared her tears and stood up with a newfound resolve and looked at her two companions. Marie-Jean, we hunt him and kill him. 12 comments 0 vote. We hunt those who hunt us. Boom, 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 boom. Sounds of arrows exploding upon contact with the nearby trees sounded throughout the entire area. Marie-Jean was currently trying her latest inventions, the exploding arrows, a product of applying an exploding rune on an arrow courtesy of Orion who gave them access to his secret collection, the Book of Covenant. It has been months since we are out here doing nothing while Sebastian is out there on a killing spree. If we don't do something very soon, we might end up being the only ones left in this world. Marie-Jean complained, it has been 5 months of doing nothing, they only have leads of where Sebastian is but they do nothing as Orion would always say that they are not yet to face something that's strong. If you are going to say that we are not strong enough, then, need I remind you that our bodies are entirely covered in runes granting us superhuman abilities putting us on par with the supernatural. Before Orion could say anything, Marie-Jean beat him to it first. She didn't understand him. First he said a normal weapon cannot kill Sebastian, so they created a weapon capable of killing him. Second, he said they are not yet ready to face the beast as they have not yet mastered runes he gave them, so they learnt everything about rune creation and how to make use of them and how make it take effect because without the proper method Orion listed, then the rune is useless and would just be a tattoo on the skin and a very useless one at that. What they did not know was that, all those things written in the Book of Covenant as guidelines were just a bunch of nonsense Orion made up. The runes he gave them were engineered to only work on them and their descendants, he made it so and no other hunter from the other family would be able to use the runes in the Book of Covenant. It is exclusively for the Argent family hunters. I completely agree with her on this one, I think we are ready to take on the beast, said Henri who was supporting himself on one of the trees. Sitting on a branch of one of the trees and eating an apple was Orion who just looked at the two and shook his head. You might be strong now and may have a chance against the beast, against Sebastian but without proper preparations, we would be just walking to our deaths. So until you both come up with a better plan rather than walking to our deaths, then I suggest you follow my lead and I know it might take a lot of time but we are going to corner him very soon, we just have to wait for the right time, he said. Henri and Marie-Jean were silent as they absolutely have no plan whatsoever in dealing with Sebastian, the beast. But for how long are we going to just sit back and let him run amok? The more time we wait, the more bodies he keeps piling up. We can't let him have his way anymore, we have everything we need, we have each other, Marie-Jean said as she approached Henri and placed her hands on his shoulder. As she was about to continue further, she heard a bark and turned at the direction of where it came from and saw Agni barking at her. She smiled as she went to ruffle his hair. We also have Agni here with us, so if it is a plan that's stopping us, then we just have to come up with a damn plan now. Orion smiled as what he had been waiting to hear all these time was just them coming up with a plan and not just foolishly hunt Sebastian. He remembered that it took Marie-Jean 7 good years just to corner the beast and luckily killed him. There is no way he would take that kill is not a coincidence, it was plot armor because there were so many things that could have gone wrong there but she still managed to kill the beast, so yeah it was luck and luck won't help her here. They were going to kill beast early and that method isn't going work given that they are both super hunters and using such an underhanded method isn't going to occur to them. Okay, listen, I already have a plan but you all must pay close attention to what I'm going to say. Orion said as he looked both Henri and Marie-Jean in the eyes back and forth. They both came close to him and nodded at him, giving him their undivided attention. Good, so this is the plan, when we encounter the beast or Sebastian, Agni and I would distract him and draw his attention to us drawing him from his current location to a deserted area. Now that's where you, Henri, that's where you show up. After Agni and I have created a considerable distance, you use the mountain ash trapping him inside giving Marie-Jean the chance to deliver the killing blow. Is that understood? Orion laid out his simple but effective plan to the hunters with him. But one of them was not happy with the way the plan went. Why do I have to do less work? I mean, I'm not even doing anything in that plan and just let you all risk your lives while I just land the finishing blow. It just like giving me a prize for something I don't deserve. I can't accept this plan, let's coke up with another one, said Marie-Jean. She did not like that her friends are going to risk their lives while she just watched from the sideline and claim the kill. She can't accept that. Orion sighed when Marie Jean said that. He just knew that there was going to be trouble if he do nothing about it. Look here, we don't have a personal weapon capable of killing him and he is your brother, you should be the one to end it or do you want me to do that for you? He said. Marie Jean did not know how to refute him as he was right. The beast is her brother and it should be her to end it. That's why they made the pike and gave it to her so that she could end him herself. It was already her duty the moment they found out that it was Sebastian that was the beast. Okay, I think your silence is agreeing to what I say and since we are on the same page, why don't we go hunt a big-ass werewolf, shadow hunters? Orion said with a bug-crazed smile on his face. Henri raised his brows when he heard what Orion called them. What's with the name? He asked. Orion's smile faded from his face when he saw that Henri found the name uncool. What do you mean hey, what's with the name? I have to let you know that that name will go down in history as one of the most powerful force in history and all the supernatural creatures who are out to cause mischiefs to think twice before even attempting to do anything. So don't make that face if you don't have a better name for our team. So when I say we are the shadow hunters then we are and we would need to have a code to follow. That I would allow you Henri, even you Marie Jean, give us a code. What are we going to live by after we've dealt with Sebastian because we can't go around killing off any supernatural creatures we see, Orion said. Henri had a serious face as he pondered on what Orion just said and picked off key points from them because he knew Orion words has meaning behind them and he had already figured out what the code should be even before asking them and just wanted to see if they were on the same page. He closed his eyes and said, "On cha suki news chasant." He opened his eyes after saying that. Marie Jean smiled as she liked the code. We hunt those who hunt us. She translated it into English for Orion who she thought did not understand it. I like that, we hunt those who hunt us and it also aligned with what I had in mind, said Orion. Even Agni barked in agreement showing his support for the code. With that, the first shadow hunters in history together with their hunter dog, Agni, went on their very first mission together to hunt down the one who hunts them, the beast of Gavadan. 6 comments 0 vote. Killing the beast. 1763, unknown tavern in France. You are one difficult guy to have a drink with. A white-haired man said to a carefree and unbothered man who was in the bar counter having a drink while thinking of his next course of action. You must be Orion, right? You are one of those shadow hunters that my sister banded together to hunt me. What a shame your weapons cannot harm me and seeing as you are here, I can assume that Marie Jean should be around here somewhere. That's good, I can end all these once and for all so that I can have my fun undisturbed. The man who turned out to be Sebastian, the beast of Gavadan and brother of Marie Jean said as he chugged his drink to the last and stood up and started walking outside. You know, I like your confidence, it made you overlooked and underestimated me a great deal. Orion said as he shot several arrows laced with wolfsbane and mistletoe at Sebastian who did not have the time to react. Orion smiled as he walked to the weakened Sebastian. I bet this hurt lot, that's what you get for being so overconfident, he said before kicking him on his face hitting one of the tables in the tavern. Oops, I'm sorry sir and sorry for disturbing your business but you have to get out of here, all of you, things are about to get really messy. Sir, when you go outside, there would be a man who will give you some money to cover any damage done here, said Orion to the customers and the tavern owner who place a mark on his hands so that Henri would be able to identify him as the owner. After that, he turned to look at Sebastian whose eyes has already turned into a bluish white as he getting up on his feet. No you don't, said Orion as he fired several arrows at him, some Sebastian managed to dodge but the others hit him. Orion smirked as Sebastian who believed he managed to dodge some of the arrows only to find them coming back at him with terrifying speed. Now that will keep you down for a while. Catch me if you can, said Orion who walked out of the tavern to see that there was nobody there, that was fast. Now I will just wait for him to chase after me and lure him into the trap where Marie Jean will end him. Orion called Agni who barked and came to him while waggling his tail at him. Hey, you are not a dog, you are a hellhound, and harbinger of death, act like one. Orion said as his pet has become very much like a normal domesticated dog rather than a wild supernatural creature that he is during the years he spent with Henri and Marie Jean especially her. Agni immediately stopped waggling his tail and his aura changed as his pupils turned reddish-orange, his fangs elongated and flames was about to appear on his body but Orion quickly stopped him. Hey, I said act like one not to transform. Sigh, forget it, you can act like dog for the time being, after this, we are going to be out of their lives, I've already done enough, said Orion as his teeth grew into fangs and bit his hands. Okay, Agni, let's run. Immediately he said that, Sebastian walked out of the tavern and looked at Orion furiously, who has already created a large distance between them. Furiously he chased after him in his human form as he was still weakened to transform into his beast form, but he could feel himself healing, so it won't take long for him to be able to transform and rip the life of this foreigner who has been nothing but trouble since he came into their lives. Elsewhere. On a snowy plain, two people, a man and a woman, could be seen standing as they looked around them as if waiting for someone. They are Henri and Marie-Jeanne, who still did not like the plan, but she can't complain as it is working out just fine. What if Orion fails to get Sebastian here? What are we going to do then? I should be there with him, not here waiting for him to come, Marie-Jeanne said while supporting herself with a pike, the weapon created to kill her brother, Sebastian, the beast of Gavaden. Henri sighed and held her hand. You just have to put your faith in him. He is Orion, he has been into this long before you even knew about the existence of werewolves, he can take care of himself, just trust him, he said, comforting her. Before Marie-Jeanne could say anything else, she saw Orion being chased by a transomed Sebastian. Henri didn't waste any more time as he readied his mountain ash and ran ahead, followed by Marie-Jeanne holding the pike tightly. Orion, seeing as they did not forget their roles, he increased his speed, and after being a few meters to Henri, he turned around and rained arrows on Sebastian, slowing him down. Henri arrived and threw the mountain ash at Sebastian, trapping him inside an encircled prison-like dome. Orion stopped firing his arrows as he looked at Henri and smiled at their success. Sebastian on the other tried to attack them after the rains of arrows stopped, but only to find out that he was trapped and there is no way out for him, making him roar madly. Marie-Jeanne arrived and did not waste any time, stabbed her brother who was madly roaring and trying to free himself from his entrapment. Peace and quietness returned to the plain as Sebastian transformed back to his human form, apparently affected by his injury caused by the pike. You think this minor injury will stop me? I am the famous and feared beast of Gavaden, and when I'm done killing, everyone will know. I will have done such horrors, and all of history will remember my name. Sebastian said, believing he still cannot be killed by anything, and boast about his future plans as he smiled at Marie-Jeanne. Marie-Jeanne walked inside the circled mountain ash, destroying it, and looked at her brother in his eyes. No one will remember, she said, pitying her brother who still did not have any remorse for the things he has done. Sebastian's face changed when he heard Marie-Jeanne and knew what she was up to. Damnatio memoriae. You would have them take my name. Our name. Sebastian said furiously as he tried to get that stupid pike out of his chest, only to convulse blood out of his mouth. What? What is this? No ordinary steel. Wolfsbane and mountain ash, forged with our blood under the light of a full moon, said Marie-Jeanne as she stood up and looked at her new family, which gave her confidence not to break down while killing her only brother. History might remember you, Sebastian. She went and kissed his forehead and whispered the last part in his ears, but only as a beast. With that, she, Henri and Orion left Sebastian lying in a pool of his own blood after taking the spike out of him. They went back to Gavaden and destroyed every record of Sebastian and anything that belonged to him, burned to the ground, leaving not of his in the world. At the house of Henri, the trio gathered together and sat whole, recounting everything that led them to this day, when Orion stood up with a sad smile, making the other two frown. I will be leaving tonight. What brought me here has been successfully eliminated, and I don't see my future in here, and so I don't have to stay around any longer, he said. No, you can't just leave. We are a team, we are the Shadow Hunters, we stick together. Marie-Jeanne was the first to voice out her opinion on the matter. Orion knew this was going to be a hard one, so he showed them his hands. I was bitten by Sebastian earlier, and we all know what happens when something like this happens, right? 17 comments, 0 vote. Meeting someone unexpected. I was bitten by Sebastian earlier, and we all know what happens when something like this happens, right? Unbelief was written clearly on the face of Marie-Jeanne and Henri when they saw the ghastly wound on Orion. They knew that a bite from a werewolf can either turn someone into a werewolf or kill them, and from the way they were looking at it, Orion is likely to survive as the bite mark on his hand has already started to heal. But not every wolf can turn anyone. They are different types of werewolves, and only an alpha werewolf can turn anyone into a werewolf through their bite. I don't understand, how can Sebastian's bite turn you into a werewolf? He is not an alpha werewolf, it doesn't make any sense, said Henri as he went to take his book, the one where he compiled a list of the supernatural creatures they have come across during his years and the time where they went to hunt for Sebastian. He calls it the bestiary. Orion covered his arm back and sighed. I don't know, but Sebastian isn't a normal werewolf to begin with, so his bite has an effect just like the bite of an alpha werewolf, he said, acting unsure. Marie Jean shook hair as she walked to Orion. You can't leave, you are one of us, you said it yourself, we are the shadow hunters and we can't let you just leave even if you are bitten. Henri also joined her. She is right, just because you are bitten does not make you any less human, even if we have to lock you up on the night every full moon until you learn how to control the wolf inside you, then we are ready to do it, said Henri. As much as I hate to say this even on a day like this, I have to, you are not Sebastian and you are not a vicious killer. You are Orion, our friend and the best goddamn shadow hunter this world have ever seen and we would hate to lose you, said Marie Jean as she linked hands with Orion and Henri. Seeing all this, Orion just wondered how people like these were the ancestors of two psychopaths Gerard and Kate. Is it that they took the personality of Sebastian, because there is no way he would believe that Gerard and Kate were descendants of Henri and Kate. I'm sorry, I have to resort to this, said Orion. Marie Jean and Henri were confused as to what he was talking about when they saw Orion appeared in front of Henri and held him down. You will forget everything about me, you don't know any Orion and you and Marie Jean were the ones who hunted the beast down and killed it after knowing its true identity. You found the Book of Covenant from when you were out gathering the different herbs for your survival. You will only remember who I am when you are on your deathbed, he compelled Henri and after he stopped all the runes on his body from working and then knocked him out. He did the same to Marie Jean and knocked her out as well. See you in a few years friends. With that, Orion left Gavadan after mind-wiping everyone who knew about him apart from Marcel who has already left the town but that's not a problem for him. After a while, Marie Jean and Henri woke up and was confused as to what they were doing lying on the ground. Guess we must have drank a lot and slept off on the floor, said Henri as he got up and took the bestiary that was lying on the floor and arranged himself. Marie Jean also cleaned herself and sat down somewhere and looked at the moon in the sky. She was happy that everything has been finally over and she can have her rest and settle down and make a family for herself. She looked at Henri who was busy writing something on the bestiary. What are you writing so seriously about? She asked confused. Henri stopped and raised his head to look at her. I am writing a rank suitable for Sebastian. You see, he is a different kind of wolf. He is neither an alpha nor a beta but he is so strong, which is not common for omegas, so that brings me to the question, what type of werewolf is Sebastian? Which led me to come up with this rank, a Zeta werewolf, a werewolf that does not run with packs but have the powers and strength of an alpha and maybe even surpassing some in some cases. They are lone wolves and have different eye colors than the normal colors known. They are extremely dangerous and should not be taken lightly, said Henri as he was also putting it down on the bestiary and thanks to the one of his runes which grants him photographic ability and makes him quite the artist, he drew Sebastian just the way he was both in his human form and beast form and labeled him the only known Zeta werewolf. Marie Jean nodded as she finds it reasonable given the numbers of werewolves they encountered when they were chasing Sebastian around the world. And that's how Henri and Marie Jean ended up living together and got married and changed her name to Marie Jean Argent and together they started the world's most powerful family hunters. 100 years later. Orion and Agni traveled the world through the years, taking in the wonders the world has to offer and had a few fun from time to time until a fateful day where he found himself in the streets of Kinku in Japan surrounded by a group of stray vampires. Orion raised his hands and smiled at the vamps. If I were you I would run away and never look back. You don't want to do this and trust me it won't be for your own good, he said. You are the one who is surrounded. You should be begging for your life and for your information. We are not humans, one the vampires said. Oh, that I know and I know the type of vampires you are. You are the disgraced and outcasts which do not belong to any coven because you lack something, said Orion who smiled at the vampires who were now angry at him for saying something he should have. Oh, did I touch a nerve there? I'm sorry, but you lack power, the energy that makes a vampire wield the power of nature like. Continued Orion who will a fireball to appear on his palm scaring the vampires back, fire. After he said that, he threw the fireball to the nearest vampire who instantly got caught up in flames. Now, who's next? Looking at his demonic smile, the vampires ran for their life fearing he might kill them. Bunch of ants, said Orion looked at the sky then at the watch on his hands. When will that bastard arrive? I'm famished and the nearest hospital isn't far from here. That was unwise of you to just let them go. Orion heard the voice of a girl from behind him and turned around to see someone he never thought of seeing here. You've got to be kidding me. 9 comments 0 vote. A new companion. You've got to be kidding me. No I'm not, you letting those vampires go is just not the right thing to do. Do you not think of their next victims not being able to defend themselves like you did? You should have just killed them and saved the lives of their next victims, that's what I'm saying. The girl said, clearly misunderstanding what Orion meant by saying that. Orion sighed because she misunderstood him, but he did not bother to explain to her and straightened himself. Not my business, and that's the job of the hunters, not mine, he said as he turned around to leave the alley. And who says you can leave? Said the girl as she unsheathed her sword and rushed at Orion. Orion easily moved out of the way without even using his supernatural speed and relied barely on his skills. Girl, I have lived far more than you can possibly fathom, so put your weapon down and you can leave with your life intact, but choose to stand against me. I can't guarantee you would be waking up in another 100 years, he said as he turned around to face her. The girl was momentarily stunted by the way Orion looked at her and moved back unconsciously. Who are you? She asked as she put her sword back in its sheath. The girl knew when to give up on a fight which she can't win, and Orion is someone who she can't win against. Orion smiled as he saw that she has some sense. You should have asked that before you attacked me, but since I am in a good mood as of late, I will tell you who I am, said Orion as he cleared his throat and continued. I am Orion, the progenitor of both the vampire and werewolf species, master of the immortal hellhound, Agni, the Rune King, the first druid and one of the first shadow hunters, the original hybrid. Orion introduced himself in a grand style with his hands outstretched. The girl just looked at him as if he has gone mad and wondered what the hell did most of the titles he listed even means. She knew of the shadow hunters. They are the most feared group of hunters and only certain family have them in their ranks. As for the rest of the things he mentioned, she knew of the vampires and the werewolves, the druids, but what the hell is a hellhound and who is Agni? Hey, are you that shocked that I am the progenitor of the two most powerful and dominant species in the world? I don't blame you, even I would be surprised by who I am if I did not know myself, but that do not mean you would space out for that long, Foxy, Orion said as he has been going on and on about who he is, but it seems like she spaced out after the first part. The woman opened her eyes wide after coming back to her senses only to black out again after finding out that the man before her is the progenitor of both the vampires and the werewolves. Just how old is he and how is he the progenitor of both races? How can that be possible? When someone asks about the progenitor of the vampires and the werewolves, they would think of two beings, two brothers, Romulus and Remus, the founders of the great Roman Empire, but had a fallout because Remus provoked Romulus by mocking his wall he built because he was jealous, so Romulus killed him, but as a vampire, he naturally could not die from such a small injury to his heart, thus sparking the war between vampires and werewolves throughout the generation. What everybody did not know was that the real reason why the brothers had a fallout was not because of some stupid wall but a woman who created a rift between brothers. But over the years people have misinterpreted the story into their own liking, and this goes of both the supernatural world and the mundane world. Sigh, you've once again spaced out. Well, I will be taking my leave now, so see you in the next 100 years. No Shiko, said Orion as he walked out of the alley and made his way to the hospital to meet up with a human Agni who has gone to get him blood. Meanwhile, the girl who turned out be no other than Noshiko Yukimura, a celestial fox and the future mother of Kira Yukimura, was now really shocked as to how Orion was able to know her name without her telling him. Without wasting any more time, she chased after him with the intention of knowing more about him. Orion walked to the hospital and saw a tall olive-skinned man with black hairs and black eyes walking out of the hospital with a bag. Took you look enough, Agni, said Orion as the man arrived in front of him who turned out to be Agni, the hellhound servant. Had to make sure no one sees me with the blood, but that was not what delayed me, but the people you compelled to donate their blood to you as you call it, said Agni as he passed him the bag filled with blood. Whatever, I have happened to bump in with a fox which will be an inconvenience to my stay here, so we are going to leave this state pretty soon, he said as he took the blood and drank right in front of everyone, but they did not see that he was drinking blood, but they saw him drinking a juice instead. He can make them see anything he wants them to see, just like a certain immortal in the Vampire Diaries world. After drinking all of the blood, he and Agni both left the state in hopes of avoiding the fox, but she proves to be resourceful as she managed to catch up with them the moment they were out of the state's border. You seem very hell-bent on meeting up with me that you couldn't wait for 100 years. Have I maybe caught your eyes? Said Orion, who bore an annoyed smile. More like caught my attention. How did you know my name? Because I remember clearly I did not tell you or make mention of it on our brief meeting, said Noshiko as she stared back and forth between Agni and Orion, wondering just who the hell they truly were. What if I tell you that I can see the future? Are you going to believe that? Said Orion. A glint flashed past Noshiko's eyes when he said that, but managed to compose herself. I don't buy that, and I also know you don't plan on telling me anyway, so how about I stick around for a while and find out by myself? she said, to which Orion sighed and Agni looking at her in curiosity wondering if she was trustworthy and had no bad intention towards them as he knew foxes to be a very mischievous creatures and a very difficult to trust but surprisedly, she seems to be someone who could be trusted. Suit yourself, said Orion who was planning on bailing out on her somewhere and continue on his own. Going to France. Haven't you learnt all you want to know about me yet? So why are you still here? Said Orion to Noshiko who was sitting beside him. Noshiko just laughed out loud as she found what Orion said to be funny, earning her side look from both Agni and Orion. What's so funny from what he said? Asked Agni. Calming down, Noshiko raised her head to face the duo. It's not what he said but just the way he said it, acting like some mysterious master overlooking the world from those novels I used to read, she said as she burst out laughing once again as she imagined Orion speaking just now. I always tell you that you should not be reading books like that, now see what it has done to you. I mean, where is the girl who pointed her sword at me and where is the girl that defy my every word even when she knows she is facing someone akin to a god in this world? Now you are just some little fangirl. Sigh, this is so degrading of my reputation, said Orion as he shook his head and sighed countless time like an old man regretting his life. Yeah, now I see what she is talking about, you are acting really like an old senile man right now, said Agni after creating a distance between him and Orion. Noshiko burst out laughing once again before she got punched in the face which sent her flying and hitting Agni causing the two of them to fall to the ground. Orion sighed when looking at the current Noshiko and thinking about the future Noshiko, the mother of Kira who was all serious and no-nonsense woman. If he didn't know any better, he would have thought that they were two different people. Well, she was also this playful during the flashbacks during when she summoned the Najastun, maybe it is just a phase in her life, but she is becoming insufferable, said Orion inside his mind. Noshiko got up all healed up and walked back to her previous spot to sit. It has been 50 years since she joined Orion and Agni on their journey and they've grown pretty close. Orion even helped to even know how to control her fox spirit, taught her how to transform into her fox just like the werewolves, partial transformation making her vastly different and stronger than her show's counterpart. Alright, after tonight I'm leaving this country, I will be heading to France, heard there was a ton of delicacies to die for there, said Orion as he stared at the night sky. And why are you telling me this? Do you perhaps want me to join you? Asked Noshiko with a smile on her face. That's not what I said, but if you want to join us, then I won't stop you, but one of these days, you will wake up without seeing me, so don't get too attached, said Orion as he closed his eyes to get a good night's sleep. Noshiko smiled as she stood up to let Orion have his rest as she joined Agni who was keeping watch. So how long have you been with him? She asked Agni as she pointed at Orion. Agni looked at him laying there peacefully and knew that he was listening to them, for as long as I remember. Ever since he came to this world, I have always been on his side, even before he saved those two brothers and took care of them till adulthood. You can call me his right-hand man, said Agni while thinking about the good old days. That long, so you must have known who his parents were. Was he born this way or was he a human before he big the hybrid? She asked wanting to know more about him as everything she knows about him is the things he wants her to know. Agni looked at her and shook his head, he never had one, you take him as son of nature, nobody knew how he came to be, not even him, so if you want to know that, then you will be stuck at a dead end for all your life, said Agni as he stood up to look around. Noshiko just sat there and looked at Orion and wondered who he truly was, his whole existence is shrouded in mysteries and anytime she tries to uncover one, she ends up with another one. Yes, I just end it here and stop trying to know about his past, instead I should leave in the moment, she said before standing up and going to set up a tent for herself. France, 1900. Three people were walking through the street of Le Havre, taking in the scenery of the beautiful city. These three were Orion, Agni and Noshiko who arrived in France a few years back and already blended with the locals. I should probably stay here for a long time, this place is just so wonderful, don't you think so, Agni? Said Orion as he just put a piece of cake into his mouth. Agni on the other hand was a little nostalgic since they first arrived here in France as it reminded him of Marie-Jeanne and Henri when the locals speak and wondered how they fared after Orion left them alone. Seeing as he wasn't getting a response, Orion knew that he was in the mood once again. Hey, don't be a killjoy, you are making me regret coming back to France, said Orion as he smacked Agni on the head. And you, stop picking, I will cut your hands if I see you picking up stuffs. Damn it, you children would be the death of me, he said to Noshiko who has mastered the art of pickpocketing and stealing from passers-by as a new form of fun for her. Noshiko raised her hands and smiled at him before putting it down only to steal from the next stranger. As if the laws of nature were against her, the person who she stole from held her hand and grinned madly at her when she turned to look at him. Oops, I guess today ain't my lucky day, she said as she smiled nervously at the man. No, it isn't, said the man in a gruff voice, and I will have to teach you a lesson so that you can never steal again. The monk's eyes turned blue as he teeth elongated into fangs and wanted to drag her out of the street only to find out that he could not move. You should have cut his hands by now, Noshiko, this is not what I taught you, said Orion who appeared behind the vampire. How can I do that? It was my fault that led me to this mess, so I don't have the right to do that to him. Instead he should be the one cutting my hands, she said as she gave a grin of her own that the man found to be very terrifying. Fear overcame the man as he screamed, hoping to draw attention to them only to find out that nobody could hear them. Seeing no other way, the man decided to fight his way out as he released Noshiko from his grasp and rushed at Orion with uncanny speed. You should have gone for the easy one. 11 comments 0 vote. Bloodworth Coven. You, clean this up, you were the one who caused this in the first place, said Orion after he ripped the heart of the vampire out and cleaned the bloodstains on his hands. Noshiko pouted at him before she bent down to carry the body when she saw a ring on one of his fingers. What's this? She said as she removed the ring out of his finger. Orion took the ring and sighed after seeing it. He is part of a coven and this is his daylight ring and a symbol of his coven, and do you know what this means, Noshiko? Orion asked her after examining the ring. Noshiko shook her head in response as she clearly has no idea what he was talking about. He means there will be one less coven in the one today or we are going to leave France early, which I don't think he will be willing to do, so the first option it is, said Agni. They knew that once a vampire that belongs to a coven dies, the coven leader would know and would stop at nothing to get rid of the person who killed their one. Just soon they could gain reputation and influence in the supernatural world. What a stupid thing. So what should I do with the body now? Said Noshiko, who stopped the body back on the ground. We are going to take it from here, after all he is one of the Bloodworth Coven member before he died at your hands. A lean and pale-looking man with blonde hairs and crimson-red eyes appeared before the trios with some other people, presumably vampires of the same coven. Well, that was quick. Listen, gentlemen and ladies, why don't we take this somewhere else? As you can see there are innocent humans walking around and is fighting. I don't think that's really a good idea, said Orion as he looked at the vampire lord, the equivalent of an alpha werewolf. The vampire lord smiled as he took a step forward. Don't worry, we can fight here to our heart content because they will err. It is a gang war, he said before looking at the trio and shook his head. Besides, I will hardly call it a fight, more like getting rid of some pest. Orion scanned the entire area and found out that there was no humans around anymore because he mind-controlled them to leave since the arrival of the vampire lord, and he was just buying time of all of them to leave. After confirming that no humans were around and only the Bloodworth Coven members, Orion smiled. This would have been avoided if a certain fox didn't pick the habit of stealing and you knowing when to look the other way, said Orion as white hairs grew on both sides of his face, his eyes turned into a crimson blood red, his face morphed into a monstrous-looking form, his fingers turned into claws. When fighting a vampire, you become their enemy, Orion said as he roared so loudly that every supernatural in the world heard him. The Alpha of all alphas, the vampire lord of all vampire lords, the god of runes, the master of all elements, the progenitor has announced himself to the world. But of course, all of this titles was him just saying it in his mind, and the supernatural world did not even know anything about him well, for some two certain people and their close confidant. You are an alpha werewolf, that's why you were so arrogant earlier, but you are not the first alpha I have put down and you won't be the last, said the vampire lord as he also grew claws as well and his teeth elongated into fangs. Take down the other two with him, I will take care of the alpha, he said before walking towards Orion. Noshiko and Agni looked at each other and nodded. After they made eye contact, Noshiko aura burst out and formed into a giant fox spirit covering her entire body in a bipedal form. That's her fox spirit transformation which Orion taught her to control. You are getting me a new shirt after this, no negotiations, said Agni as flames erupted out of his body, burning his clothes in the process. He grew claws and fangs and his eyes turned into an orange-red color. The vampires including the vampire lord was surprised by the lineup and started having second thoughts, but he can't back down now, that would ruin the reputation of his coven. Don't be afraid by their flashy display, they are just doing so to intimidate you, don't fall for it, said the vampire lord as he vamped speed to Orion as the two of them clash. The faster we get rid of this small fries, the faster Orion kills the vampire lord, or else he is going torture that vampire till we finish the minions, said Agni as he grabbed a vampire running at him and burnt him into crisp. Noted, said Noshiko, slicing a vampire into two. With that, Noshiko and Agni slaughtered vampires left and right as if they were just meats being butchered by a butcher. Orion deflected any attack of the vampire lord but did not counterattack as he did not want to hit it so quickly. Getting frustrated that he was not landing a hit on him, the vampire lord used the element he was attuned to, which is blood, to his advantage, and there was surplus of blood everywhere, which didn't occur to him that it was the blood of his coven members as he was too focused in getting rid of Orion. He willed the blood to him and shaped it into a blood spear as he aimed it at Orion, who dodged once again. Not going to let that happen again, he created several blood spears and spread it all around Orion before releasing it, but the next thing that happened greatly surprised him. Orion merged with the shadows and appeared behind him. You are a shadow wolf, this is going to be troublesome, said the vampire lord. And you are a red vampire, this is going to be easy, said Orion with a grin on his face. Angrily, the vampire lord several blood weapons and sent them to Orion, who easily evaded them without difficulties. End him, we are done here. So soon, and I thought I will be having my fun for like an hour, but I guess I was wrong, said Orion after hearing what Agni said. You heard what he said, so I have cut our meeting short, nothing personal. Orion willed the vampire lord's shadow and bind him to the ground before walking to him. You should have walked away the moment you saw me, but your ignorance cost you your life, and they say, ignorance is a bliss, idiots, Orion said before slicing the vampire lord's neck, Elijah style. You, clean this up, you were the one who caused this in the first place. 9 comments 0 vote. 1944. 1940. After that bloody fight 40 years ago, Orion, Agni and Noshiko laid low for a while so as not to draw attention to them. They have been traveling round the world during these 40 years, not staying in one place for long. And now they are currently in Beacon Hills, Oak Creek, where they are treated like refugees. Are we going to continue living like this? We can walk out of here and nobody would say anything, said Noshiko as she played around with a stolen apple. Orion just laid on one of the refugees' bed. Leave and do what? Join the war. At least it is peaceful here. I don't want to brutally kill anyone because they mistakenly shot at me, he said. Noshiko frowned and wanted to protest but stopped when she saw a young man walk inside. Hello, I'm Corporal Officer Reese. You will be under my care from today, the young blonde man said before his eyes also caught Noshiko looking at him. And that's love at first sight for you, Agni, said Orion as he saw the way they looked at each other. Orion shook his head when he thought of how their relationship turned out, but he would not do anything about it and let everything play out as the show. After a while Reese left the room, which made Noshiko cake back to her senses. Well, he is a fine man, what do you think, Agni? She asked Agni as she already know what Orion would say. Agni was silent for a while. I say go for it if you feel anything for him, it is your life, said Agni as he went back to what he was doing. With that a year passed, Orion decided to leave Oak Creek as he knew if he were to stay here till the event that led to the Najastun being summoned by Noshiko would not happen, as he might prevent it even if he did nothing. But you said you wouldn't leave the camp, but why the sudden change of heart? Said Noshiko, who did not want to leave anymore. Orion smiled and ruffled her hairs. There has been a change of plans, but don't worry, you can stay here and wait for Agni and I. We will be back before you even know it, he said. Noshiko didn't like it, but things were going well for her and Reese right now and she did not want to sabotage it. Okay, but promise you come back soon or else, in the next 100 years when we cross path I will run my blade through your heart, she said with a pout. Orion laughed out loud before reassuring her once more before they left Oak Creek. I'm sorry but I can't interfere with this and it will help you grow, said Orion after he was a long distance away from the camp. Noshiko stood there and watched as her two friends left. She felt as if a part of her has left and might never come back again. Before she could even try to chase after them, they were completely gone. She could not even see their backs anymore. Tears streamed down her cheeks. You better come back, she said before turning back into the Oak Creek camp. And just like that another 2 years passed. Everything went on like the show. Noshiko and Reese fell in love with each. Noshiko went back to her stealing habit, but this time, she did it for the refugees as they were not given enough ratio. Reese finally got a transfer to France and Noshiko was teaching him French when they caught 2 officers giving a doctor some cash he did not know where they got it from. The refugees began getting sick and started dying one by one, and they couldn't take it anymore until Noshiko told them about how the doctor and two officers were selling drugs to the black market, and the drugs that should have been used to treat the sickness the refugees were suffering from were also sold, infuriating the refugees even more, causing them to protest. Noshiko regretted telling them quickly as things got out of hand. She should have listened to Satomi and do things quietly, but it seems that she was too hasty in making decisions. The day of the protest arrived and everything went as the plot, but things would have been different here since Noshiko was stronger now than the plot, but due to watching the love of her life get burnt alive by a very angry Satomi who turned out to be a bitten Omega werewolf, she just stood there and did nothing as the officers opened fire and shot at the refugees, including her to near death. After the officers were done, they gathered the bodies of the dead refugees, and Reese would die due to lack of medicine which the doctor had sold off, to burn their corpse. Noshiko, who was still conscious but very weak to save herself, was kept close to her love. When she looked at him, she remembered all the good times she had with him and did not want the ones who robbed her of that to go unpunished, so she called out the ancestor of the fox species, Kitsune Tusky, for a powerful Najistune, one that feeds off of chaos, strife and pain, to take control of her weakened body, imbue it with power and use it as a weapon. But what she didn't expect was for the Najistune to not possess her but her dead lover, Reese. When they got to the site to burn them alive, the Najistune attacked the officers and killed them before he drove back to Oak Creek, where he caused a lot of carnage. Noshiko finally healed and regained a bit of her strength as she went back to undo what she caused, getting rid of the Najistune. When she got back to the camp, what she saw brought tears into her eyes as she saw everyone she knew dead, disfigured bodies everywhere. She heard the screams of the ones who managed to escape as they run for their lives. She immediately ran to where the screams were coming from and saw Reese, or what's left for him, being used by the Najistune she summoned. She unleashed her fox spirit and faced off against the Najistune, who was not that strong physically. Satomi also came to help her, though she did not need it, but she was still thankful. Together with Satomi, they defeated the Najistune and she trapped him, the Nematan of Beacon Hills, never to see the light of day again. As there was nothing here for her in Beacon Hills anymore, she went in search of her friends. 15 comments, 0 vote. 2011. 2011. Beacon Hills, California. A very attractive woman in her early 30s with tanned white skin, warm brown eyes, and long, wavy curly brown hair was walking aimlessly in Beacon Hills Preserve. She didn't even know what she was doing currently. She walked through the forest until she came to a wide area where a large stump of a cut-down tree is. She got on the stump where she saw a man staked as he laid there desiccated. She walked to the man and pulled the stake out. She waited for a few minutes before the man's eyes opened, which shone a bright golden glow. Veins appeared around his eyes. Colors returned to his face as he got up and looked at her curiously before recognizing who she is. Melissa, he said her name, bringing her out of her trance-like state. Melissa Delgado, formerly known as Melissa McCall, but after her divorce, she changed it back to her maiden name. Melissa woke up from her trance-like state and was confused as she did not know where she was. She then remembered pulling a wooden stake out of someone just a few minutes ago. She looked at where he was supposed, only to find out that he was no longer there. Meanwhile, the man was already on the hunt after hearing several men together in the forest, and he was very hungry, which means a bad thing for the people here. He also found out that 2 extra people were also here, separate from the other people in groups, and from their voice, he could tell that they were still teens. When he got to the group of men and saw that they were all cops, he also spotted a very familiar man, which made him sigh. "Guess, I will just have a bite," the man said before he vanished from his spot and appeared besides one of the men and took him. He drained the man of his blood, but not to the point of killing him, as he did not want a certain sheriff on his tail. After he was done with the cop, he compelled him to forget what just happened to him and make sure to stay alive for the next 24 hours. With that, the man decided to go back and get the woman who saved him, only to pause as he sensed an alpha werewolf in the area, and that's when it hit him. The cops, the 2 teens and the alpha, this was the beginning of the plot. Ha, those damn druid, I am going to make sure I get them for what they did to me. I miss all those years and I couldn't get back to Noshiko because of them, he said before making his way to the 2 teens. He got to where the 2 boys were and saw that the 2 of them were also close to the cops. He remembered that one of the boys would mess up and get caught, leaving the other one, who has a severe asthma, behind, and with the stroke of luck got bitten and turned to a werewolf, while the other one remained human till the very end. But tonight, things are going to be different. Since he was here, then he should do something about it. He controlled the trees to block the cops from them, so that the one who was supposed to run away stays. He succeeded and the two of them were not discovered by the cops. They followed another direction and looked around for a while before the asthmatic one lost his inhaler and began looking for it, and mistakenly he found what they were looking for. A body, well, half a body to be precise. Scott and his stupid luck. Well, Peter the First will take it from here, said the man as his golden pupils turned blood red. He waited a little until he heard a wolf's howl before he took a step to where the boys were. He first of all bit the asthmatic one as he pinned the other one to the ground. After he was done, he pinned the asthmatic one to the ground and looked at the other one for a while and smiled before biting him as well. When he was done with them, he vamped speed to the Nematin to look for the woman who woke him up but saw that she was gone. Damn it, I am going to kill those damn druid. Wait, they should be dead by now, which means I will have to kill their descendants. Yes, that's right, I kill their descendants, he said, but only to realize that he did not even know who their descendants were since he literally has no idea who they were. Forget, I should go look for Agni first, he said as he made his way out of the forest. As soon as he came out of the forest, he saw a car coming his way. He waved to stop the car. Initially he wanted to compel whoever was in the car to step out so that he can drive it, but refrained from doing that after he discovered who was in the car. Hey, I am kind of lost. I went camping with my friends when all of these deer suddenly came out of nowhere separating me and my friends, and now I'm stranded and I can't seem to find my way out of here. I don't know if I could join you, he said, making up a believable story for the woman to buy. Get in, said the woman, surprising both the girl with her and the man. Actually, he thought he would need a little more convincing and the help of her daughter, but it seems like that is not needed. Thank you, the man said as he quickly got in the car as he looked at the woman, wondering what made her easily let him inside the car. Oh, I'm Orion by the way, said the man. I'm Allison and this is my mother, Victoria, said the tall and thin young woman with pale white and lightly freckled skin, curly dark brown hair, and brown eyes, giving off a similar resemblance to Snow White. You look like someone I used to know. If I did not know any better, I would have mistaken you for her, said Orion as he looked at Allison. She really bore an uncanny resemblance to Marie Jean, her ancestor. Meanwhile, Victoria was watching Orion from her front mirror. They did not trust him one bit but only took him in because his story was convincing and she wanted to look good in front of her daughter. If not, she would have left him there all by himself. They arrived in Beacon Hills and Orion stepped down from the car and waved Allison goodbye and thanked Victoria for the ride before going to the nearest hotel to rest for the night. I will be making Melissa the love interest. 19 comments, 0 vote. Styles finds out. That's the problem, Scott. There has been no single sighting of a wolf in California for the past 60 years now, much less wolves. Then what do you think bit us? You and I heard a wolf howling and then we found this bite marks on our body. I really think it was a wolf, said Scott. Scott, a sophomore high schooler, and his best friend, Styles, were having a heated conversation about what happened to them last night. Last night, Styles overheard his father taking a phone call about a sighting of a body, but the strangest thing was, the body was cut in half and they only managed to find one. So after his father left, he immediately went to his best friend's house to tell him of his recent discovery and also have Scott join him in looking for the other half. By a stroke of luck, they managed to find the body, but before they could rejoice, they got bitten by something which Scott didn't get a proper look on, but that could not be said for Styles. Styles saw the one who bite them and it wasn't a wolf but a man with red glowing eyes and white hairs. His whole perspective of life changed last night as he believed he has come in contact with the supernatural and he might have become one himself. But he didn't know how to tell Scott that they might have become a werewolf, as he is really fixated on making the first team in lacrosse and he didn't want to ruin that now, but he has to tell him either way and he can't keep pushing it. Styles looked around them and saw that no one was around them. Then he got closer to Scott. I know this might sound weird, but I think we gotten bitten by a werewolf, which means we are going to become one just like him, said Styles, waiting for how Scott would take it. Scott looked at Styles as if he was on drugs. I think you must have hit your head so hard that you didn't even notice that Lydia just passed by right now, said Scott before he walked into the school. Styles stood there and raised a brow as he actually did not fan over Lydia, which was something he would normally do. As he was about to enter the school, he could hear the heartbeat of someone nearby. He hear the pulse in their veins, the blood flowing in them. All he could think about was going over there and bite into the neck of that person and drink their blood. He quickly regained himself as he gulped so hard. That's definitely not a werewolf thing, said Styles before he went into the school. A few minutes later, class started and they were all seated. The teacher said a few words before he faced the board to write down something. Scott looked back at Styles, who was not far from controlling his bloodlust, fighting back the urge to put his teeth into one of his classmates and drain them of their blood. Styles also looked back at Scott and wondered if he was feeling the same thing, but he was actually fine, which made him wonder if he was the only one affected by the bite. Styles immediately left for the bathroom as he did not know how long he was going to control himself. Scott wanted to join him, but before he could get up, that's when the girl he overheard speaking with her mother from outside over the phone came in, which was very weird. He was instantly captivated by her beauty that he could not stop staring at her. The vice principal introduced her to the class before he left. The girl walked to her seat, which happened to be behind Scott, who could not stop staring at her. Immediately she sat down, he turned around and offered her his pen. Tuesday girl was initially surprised, but she just smiled and took the pen from him after thanking Scott. The bathroom. Styles immediately looked at his face in the mirror to see if he was having any changes on his face, like fangs, glowing red eyes, but he could not find anything strange. What's happening to me? He asked, confused. All he could think about was blood and blood, how much he wanted to bite into the flesh of anyone in his sight and drain their blood. You are a vampire in transition, you are going to need blood to complete your transition, and since you are not like the tainted vampires, you won't die but instead turn to a bloodsucker, a creature devoid of any human emotions with the sole purpose of drinking blood until it is satisfied. But good thing I don't bail on my responsibilities. Styles turned around to see a white-haired man with golden pupils and an annoying grin on his face. Here, take this and complete your transition, then you can be able to think straight, said Orion as he gave Styles a blood bag he collected from the hospital early this morning. Seeing the blood bag, Styles lost all of his reasoning and grabbed it and drank it down to the last drop. Styles thought he was going to feel repulsed, but instead enjoyed the taste of blood. After he drank it, veins appeared around his eyes, he grew fangs and claws. He has finally become a full-fledged vampire. He could feel a newfound strength coursing through his veins, he felt incredible. His head has become clearer now and he could think very clearly. He raised his head to look at his marker. Why did turn me into a vampire? I mean, there's gotta to be reason, right? Said Styles, going back to his interrogating mode. Orion just simply looked at him. Others would be asking how to undo what I did to them, or try to kill me for ruining their lives, but you just went into detective mode immediately after your transformation. That's a progress, said Orion as he walked to the bathroom door. I will be away for a few days. Make sure you handle Scott in the night if the full moon, least he goes around wantonly killing anyone he sees that night and you won't be able to him if there is some much blood. So take care until then. When I come back, I will teach you control, said Orion as he left. He has a hellhound to look for. 12 comments, 0 vote. Download the app for greater interaction. You can chat with me about my writing experience apart from the comments section. Adams 2004. Download app now. Lacrosse tryout. Knock, knock. Why am I even knocking? Said Orion, who was in front of an animal clinic. He opened the door to the clinic and walked inside and saw a dark-skinned bald man holding a perfectly crafted wooden stake. Leave while I'm still asking nicely, said the man. Orion raised a brow at him and did not know whether to laugh or cry for the poor man who was actually digging his early grave if he was here to actually kill him. Orion tried walk into the clinic proper but was unable to. Clearly, mountain ash tree. You are actually a very lucky guy, and I have a use for you, that's why you are still breathing, Dryad. I just need your knowledge during the time I was blacked out by your own people, said Orion as he willed the wind to open the door for him. He walked inside and took a seat as he folded his leg and smiled at the man who put down the stake after determining that there was not a threat. Now that we are on the same page, I need your help in looking for some certain group of druids who committed hideous crimes like the five-fold knot ritual, and I hear you are the man who will know the answer to my questions, Deedon. When the man who was Deedon, the boss of Scott and the owner of the animal clinic, heard what Orion said, he moved back a little, which made him almost fall to the ground, but he easily managed to get his bearings and sat down. The five-fold knot ritual, whose druids have never heard of it? They have all heard about it. It is one of the darkest things ever done in the history of druids, and it will always leave a stain in their life. And the worst of it all of these started with his ancestor who yearned for more power, gathered druids of like minds, and together they ventured into the darkness. Why do you want to know about that? Deedon asked as he did not want to delve into that particular subject as it is too sensitive for him. Well, let's just say we have some unfinished business to settle, and when I found that they may still be alive, I said that's great. I can settle the old debts, but they also took something very important from me and I want it back. I want my hellhound back, said Orion as he stared at Deedon. When Deaton heard him say hellhound, he started sweating as he now finally knew who he was talking to, the immortal with a hellhound, the creature of two species, the master of the night who stalks the night with his inferno dog, the progenitor of both the vampires, werewolves and dryads, the hybrid. He looked at the wooden stake laced with yellow wolfsbane and threw it away, it of no use to him now since he can't even get the chance to get close to Orion before his head start rolling on the ground. Good, I see that you have gotten back your senses and figure out who I am, so should we get back to what we were talking about? Said Orion as he grinned at Deaton. Beacon Hill School. Listen to me, Scott, we can't go out on that field right now, don't you feel something different about you, like bloodlust, the urge to bite into? Said Styles as he looked around the locker room and saw a boy getting dressed close to them and pointed at him for Scott to see, bite into his neck and drained him of his blood. Scott just looked at Styles as if he was high or something. Look, I get it, okay. I can hear things that I normally should not be able to hear, see things from afar, smell things, but I don't crave blood, or do I have any urge to drain him of any blood. Now can you let me go? I have to make the first team, said Scott as he took his lacrosse stick and left the locker room. Fine, you can go, clearly you love to make first line very much that you don't even give a damn about what happened last night, but don't come running back all freakish when you start growing claws, said Styles after Scott left, but he also immediately took his lacrosse stick after that and he ran after Scott. They arrived on the field a minute later where they could see Lydia and the new girl Allison sitting together. I have to admit the girl sitting besides Lydia is kind of hot, I have to say, you truly are my best friend, said Styles as he sat down together with Scott, who was still looking at Allison while smiling like a love-struck fool. McCall, you are the goalie, now get your ass onto the pitch, said the coach. Scott came out of his daydream and looked at the coach, but coach, I've never played before, he said. The coach patted him on the shoulders and smiled. That's why you are the goalie. This is first training for the season and you are here to build their confidence. Now go, said the coach as he pushed Scott away. Scott ran and stood in the goal as he stared at the first team and made sure to be among them this season. Whistle. Scott fell to the ground as he hurt his head due to the high-pitched sound from the whistle. Even Styles was not faring any better as he too held his head, and all of these did not escape the watchful eyes of a certain someone. McCall, afraid of a little whistle, said of the lacrosse players after he scored a goal when Scott was down. Scott stood back up and yelled his lacrosse stick and looked at Allison, who looked back at him and smiled. With that, Scott was able to catch all the balls thrown at him after having his head clear of any noises. Jackson, the star player of the Beacon Hills lacrosse team, the captain of the team, frowned when he saw how everyone was cheering for Scott and he couldn't take it, so he didn't wait for his turn and took the ball and stared at Scott. He ran few steps before throwing the ball at him, but all of his efforts are for waste as Scott easily caught the ball, making everyone watching clapped and cheered for Scott even more, especially the coach. Meanwhile, Styles on the other hand was also happy, but for another reason. He was now happy that he is going to make a terrific lacrosse player because of the bite. He was so happy that he marked this as one of the best thing that ever happened to him. 10 comments, 0 vote. Melissa meets Orion. Beacon Hills Reserve. Scott and Styles went back to the place where it all started and where they found the other half of the body before they got bitten. I was incredible back then, it was like I had all the time in the world to catch the ball. It was exhilarating, said Scott as he remembered everything that transpired today. First he met a girl that caught his eyes, second he impressed his coach, so the chances of him making first line is guaranteed. Styles just sighed as he knew all of these perks they are enjoying right now came at a cost, their humanity. Styles vamped speed and climbed and try at a very fast speed, making Scott unable to track him. When he got on the tree, he opened his hands wide and grinned. Impressive, right? This is what I have been telling you about. We were bitten last night by someone and we are no longer humans, said Styles as he jumped down. I am a vampire now, Scott, you know what that means. All these time Scott was frozen in place as he saw all the things Styles just did. It was something impossible to achieve, but he just did it without breaking a sweat, and he also dropped the biggest bomb in his life. He is no longer human and Styles is a vampire. That means I have to survive on blood, and if I don't consume blood, I turn into something called a bloodsucker and mindlessly kill anyone I come in contact with, so start taking this seriously when I say this is serious, said Styles. Scott did not know how to process all of these so quickly, but one thing he knows is, Styles is right, all the things he says explained all the changes he is experiencing. This is where we found the body, before we heard the wolf howling, said Scott as he bent down to look for his inhaler that he dropped. Werewolf, but I guess whoever killed her has already taken the other half, said Styles, wondering something. Scott stood up and looked at Styles. You also think it has something to do with that guy, right? The one that you said bit us, or he might even be the one that killed her, said Scott, coming up with some absurd theories. Styles shook his head. He can't be the one who did it. When he came to the school earlier, I saw what kind of a person he was. He couldn't be this careless enough to leave any body behind, so I don't think he is the killer, said Styles. Scott didn't say anything anymore and just looked for his inhaler when suddenly they heard a footstep of someone walking in their direction. You should not be here. This is a private property and you are trespassing, said a man, a tall, muscular, and handsome man with black hair, blue-green eyes, and olive skin. We are sorry, we were just looking for said Scott, only to pause as he did not like the vibes he was getting from the strange man. Forget it. The man put his hands into his pocket and brought out something before throwing it to Scott, who easily caught it. After that, the man left the two kids alone all by themselves. Dude, that was Derek Hale. He is just a few years older than us, remember? Said Styles as he instantly recognized the young man. Scott obviously did not remember someone like that as he shook his head. His whole family died due to a fire outbreak on their house. I heard he is the only survivor along with his sister, said Styles. I don't know, man, but we have to leave here now and find a way to deal with all of this werewolf and vampire craziness, said Scott as he started walking back the way they came. Styles just stood there and stared at the place Derek previously stood before turning around to follow Scott. Beacon Hills Hospital. Melissa just sat at the counter as she fell into a deep thought. She has started getting weird dreams just like when she was still a child to her teens before meeting Scott's father. But recently, she keeps having that weird dream, even to the point where she felt it was real when she pulled a wooden stake from the heart of the man in her dreams. But that's not the crazy part. She felt her five senses heightened. She could hear someone speaking from a far distance, something that was not possible. She felt she has become even younger and more beautiful, so as she was told. But what truly disturbs her was the person in her dreams. It has always been just that person. If it was not him, it will be a large wolf with white fur and bright golden eyes, just like the man's physical appearance. You are lost in your thoughts again. You must be daydreaming about that your mysterious date once again, said her colleague who came to swap her. Melissa chucked and shook her head. I have told you, I don't have a mysterious date, said Melissa as she packs her things. Come on, I am like your best friend. You can't hide these things from me. I know there is a guy who you are expecting to meet. If not, how do you explain the recent glow up? Said the colleague. Melissa sighed as she has no explanation for it and decided to just dodge the question as she left for her next shift. On her way, she accidentally bumped into someone and was about to fall, but someone held her from falling to the ground. Hey, look where you are going, said the man who saved her, but he would not let the man just go. He must teach him a lesson, so he marked him for his new beta to hunt in the next full moon. After that, the man helped Melissa to stand properly on her feet. Melissa turned to look at her savior only to move back in shock when she saw who it was. It was the same man in her dreams, the same white hair, the same bright golden eyes and the same smile. It was exactly the same. Orion, she muttered unconsciously. When Orion heard her call his name, he just smiled. I guess the mate bond is really strong for you to even know my name. What other effect does it have on you? Said Orion as he was genuinely curious about the mate bond. 10 comments, 0 vote. Orion meets Peter Hales. Beacon Hills Hospital. Who are you? Melissa asked Orion after they were out of view. Well, you already know that. I don't see what I should tell you again, said Orion with a cocky grin. Melissa rolled her eyes at him before taking a better look at him. White hair, bright golden eyes, handsome face and a very smooth olive skin. He is the perfect man one could ever dream of. Of course I know your name, but I don't know anything about you. Like, how did I even know your name in the first place, and why am I dreaming of you always? Melissa asked him. Orion placed his hands on his chin. What do you want to know? And make it quick. I have to deliver something to a teenage before he goes on rampage, said Orion. What about your origin and how we are related? Melissa asked. I said make it quick, not to ask me such a question, said Orion as he stood up. I can show you, but I don't think you are going to be okay with what I am going to show you, he said. Try me. Okay, you asked for it. Orion placed his hands on her forehead as they but closed their eyes at the same time. Orion transferred his 7,000 years of memories to Melissa, who thanks to the effect of her bond with Orion did not receive any backlash or anything from having such a huge info being dumped into her brain all at once, but absorbed them like sponge. After a few minutes, Melissa opened her eyes and stared at the man before her very eyes. You are the first supernatural creature to exist. You started the vampire and the werewolf race. You were the first being to even walk this earth along with your dog. She said but was interrupted by Orion. That's not a dog but a hellhound, and harbinger of death. He is a very fearsome creature, said Orion, who was proud to be the master of Agni. Melissa then looked at him as if she just realized something. And I am actually fated to be with you, because of the mate bond, that explains the dreams, the recent increase in strength and senses, my glow up, all of that because I am your mate, she said, a little shocked. I know it is hard to easily take in, but don't worry, I won't pressure you, I have spent a lifetime waiting for you, what's a few days compared to that? You can take your time, if you need anything, you can just call my name and I will be there, said Orion as he left, giving Melissa time to process everything, including the fact that her son is now a werewolf and his best friend is a vampire, and not just ordinary ranks but pure bloods, ones directly turned by Orion himself, and in the annals of history, there is only 2 known true bloods and now 4, including her son and his best friend. Meanwhile, Orion walked around the hospital like he was the boss as he looked for the blood bank to gather blood bags for himself and Styles. While on the way he came across Peter, who was in comatose or pretending to be. He smirked and walked into the room. Peter Hale, the only survivor of the Hale fire, your will to survive is greatly astonishing, even to the intense of killing your own family and justifying it as you wanting more power to have your revenge against the Argents, but you see, you can never beat the Argents on your own. You are going to need a pack, and I doubt you can be able to amass a pack if you continue pretending to be in comatose. Come on, go out there, pick strong and able men, not some teenagers who are still living under their parents' roof. They are not reliable, trust me, take my advice and you are going to stand a chance against them, said Orion as he turned around to leave. He really wanted to help Peter. After all, he is from the bloodline of the royal werewolves, he is stronger than his show's counterpart, he just needed a little help, and that is by picking the right people to be in his pack if he really wants to stand against the Argents, who have the Book of Covenant on their side. The Argents have deviated from their path and it is high time they need cleansing. Peter, on the other hand, just stared at Orion's back while wondering who he was to know so much about him. Elsewhere. A few hours later. Styles was at home surfing the internet looking for anything that can help him with this vampire stuffs and Scott's situation, but all he could dig out was that vampires were supposed to burn under the sun, but he has been walking around fine under the sun. He looked over all the weakness of a vampire so that he would be careful around so as not to lose his guard and expose himself. You know, all the things you are learning from the internet are majorly false. For example, vampires having a weakness for garlic, that's just a load of crap. Styles quickly turned around in fright, almost falling off his chair. How did hell are you doing that? Geez, you freaked me out. What are you doing here anyway? And wait, before you answer that, do you have anything to do with the 2 halves of body found in the preserve? Styles asked. Orion smiled as he just ignored him and walked to a wall and drew a rune on the wall. Hey, what are you doing? You can't just draw anything you like on my woe. Styles was left speechless as he saw what Orion just did. Orion created a personal space hidden in the wall that has the characteristics of a freezer with an infinite amount of space to house his blood bags. Okay, this is the last time I will be running errands for you, so when you exhaust this batch of blood bags, get ready to go to the hospital to pick more blood bags. Orion said as he dumped all the blood bags he brought with him into the space, leaving Styles stunted. He gave Styles the instruction on how to make use of the storage using the runes before leaving. It is time he introduced himself to Scott.